Once upon a time, heroes were larger than life. They fought, they failed, they got back up, and they earned your respect. But now they whine endlessly and doubt themselves. They're too quirky, too sad, and too soft. And the worst part, they win anyway. So what happened to our heroes? And why have they been watered down so much? Moses, Woody, and Shrek come from different worlds, but they all remind you of a time when heroes felt full of life, when the good guy had balls. They carried stories with clear hearts and clear choices. They made mistakes, but those mistakes pushed them forward instead of holding them back. They were curious, stubborn, funny, and bold all at once. They had fears that made sense, and most of all, they acted rather than sit back and wait for someone to show them the way. Look at Moses in The Prince of Egypt. His story begins with chaos, long before he understands who he is. He grows up in a palace full of comfort and freedom, and he behaves like someone who has never had to think about the weight of his actions.
You almost killed me! Oh, come on! Where's your sense of fun?
He is reckless and laughs through life like everything is a game. Even then, he is charming, quick-thinking, and brave in ways he doesn't fully understand yet. But everything changes when he learns the truth about where he came from, and this is where his arc really starts. Things become even worse when he kills an Egyptian guard. Faced with an existential crisis, he soon leaves the palace, the life he knew, and steps into the desert with nothing but guilt, confusion, and the hope that he will find some answers about his identity and purpose. That choice matters. Nobody forces him to walk away, and nobody drags him into his destiny. Dude just acts. He chooses a path that feels right even though it hurts. And this choice is what shapes him into someone stronger. In Midian, where he runs to, he grows again. He learns to work, to serve, to care, and to slow down. He marries, builds a new life, and becomes calmer and wiser. So when he encounters the burning bush, he is not the careless prince anymore. He is someone who understands what fear feels like. He questions himself, but he still steps forward when it counts. And what does all this tell you? That his courage comes from struggle. Instead of being handed strength, he earns it. Instead of being written as someone who already knows everything, he grows into someone who can face a kingdom he once called home, and a king he once called brother. And when he returns to Egypt, we see just how much he has changed. Gone is the playful prince who treated life like a joke. In his place stands a man who speaks with conviction, who confronts Ramses even though it breaks his heart, and who fights for people who cannot fight for themselves. You can feel the weight of every choice he makes, and the movie allows him to carry that weight with honesty. That is what heroes like Moses did so well. They moved, acted, and pushed their stories forward with real intention. They faced danger, doubt, and responsibility, and the movie let them stand tall in those moments. But do you know what's even more interesting? Back then, heroes with balls came in different forms and still managed to hook us with their heroism. Just look at Woody from Toy Story. He is a totally different kind of hero, and not just because he's a toy and not a real human like Moses, but also because he's not a revolutionary dreamer. He already has everything he wants. He is a leader who wants to protect Andy and keep the group together. But the problem is, he is jealous and insecure, which makes him feel real. In the first movie, he makes one bad choice when he tries to push Buzz aside, and the whole plot explodes from that moment.
Buzz!
The journey he takes in Toy Story 1 is a full lesson in humility and courage. He goes from being the top toy to a broken one stuck with Buzz in a stranger's house. And eventually, he fights his way back with teamwork and honesty. By Toy Story 2 and 3, you see how much Woody has grown. He takes on danger without thinking twice. He saves Jessie, and he guides the gang through a daycare prison break. He never gives up on Andy, even when the world around him keeps changing.
We'll always be there for him.
Every movie gives him a new test, and every time he rises with a new understanding of loyalty and purpose. But what happens when the hero never wanted to be a hero in the first place? That's where Shrek comes in. When he first appears, he's grumpy, rude, and happy being alone. But under that rough skin, he has the same trait Moses and Woody have. He acts. He goes straight to Farquaad to get his swamp back. And that choice kicks off a journey that changes him piece by piece. The way he softens toward Donkey without losing his spark is one of the funniest and most heartwarming parts of his arc. His crush on Fiona grows naturally because he sees her as someone who understands him, rather than someone who needs saving. But do you know what the best part is? Shrek is not afraid to be himself. He finds courage without changing his nature. He doesn't become a prince, nor does he become elegant. He stays Shrek, but a better Shrek. Unfortunately, the heroes of today have lost that boldness, and the way they did is both hilarious and sad. Let's start with Wade from Elemental, because he shows the problem in a very simple way. Look, this guy is not a bad person. He's basically a good guy with a big heart. But there's a weird problem. The movie introduces him as a city inspector who understands water flow better than anyone. Yet the first thing he does is get stuck in a pipe. That moment is supposed to be funny, but it also makes him look clueless about the job he is trained to do. And that sets the tone for the rest of the film. Wade keeps crying, which could have been charming if the movie showed how that helps him connect with people. Besides, isn't the crying even too excessive to begin with?
First I'm sucked into a pipe and now the right sections I can get this place shut down. Oh.
His emotions seem to slow everything down, and worse, make everything awkward. The film also makes him helpless in moments when he should act sharp. Because of this, it's hard to root for him as a hero since he has no balls. Nevertheless, we can cut Wade some slack because aside from him, there were a lot of things wrong with the movie already. But one character we will never let off the hook is Ralph from Ralph Breaks the Internet. In the first movie, Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph was an active hero who had a clear, noble goal: win a medal to prove he was good and save his game. He had a strong character arc that was all about finding acceptance. But in the sequel, the writers seemed to assassinate his character completely. Instead of being driven by a noble purpose, Ralph's core conflict is his fear of losing his best friend, Vanellope. He was turned into a needy, insecure friend who can't handle Vanellope having her own dreams. He goes from being a hero who breaks the rules to save others to a guy who tries to sabotage his friend's life because he's too scared to be alone. The plot literally hinges on his personal anxiety, which grows so big it turns into a giant virus monster that threatens the entire internet. Think about that. His emotional baggage becomes the actual final boss. This change takes a strong, active protagonist and replaces him with a character whose main problem is his codependency. Instead of an adventure about saving a kingdom or solving a quest, the movie becomes an emotional therapy session about learning to let go. That is the very definition of a hero being watered down. But when you have this argument, some people counter that making your hero emotional isn't a bad thing. Except this has nothing to do with being emotional or humble or generally imperfect. The truth is, heroes feel weaker today because older stories let those emotions lead somewhere. They let heroes make choices, take risks, and learn through real action. And even better, they don't revert to the flaws that used to define them. Their growth stays, and if anything, they get better. This is another problem with Korra in The Legend of Korra. She was meant to be the opposite of Aang, a physically gifted, headstrong avatar who focused on fighting, more than the spiritual side of things. However, this different approach quickly became a problem. Korra starts as reckless and arrogant, believing she deserves special treatment just because she's the Avatar. But here is the crazy part. Even though she had years of intense training, she kept losing meaningful battles to mid-level benders.
Giving her their best and her best ain't good enough to stop it.
She was supposed to be a powerhouse, but her victories often felt inconsistent or like a product of the script fixing things at the last minute. This cycle of making impulsive mistakes, facing huge consequences, and then needing to recover only to revert to the same behavior later makes it incredibly hard to cheer for her. Why should we invest in her growth if she just keeps repeating the same mistakes? When the Avatar, who is supposed to be the world's protector, barely masters her own basic conflicts, her role as the protagonist feels hollow. So here's the pattern. Ralph becomes defined by his needy insecurity, Wade by his emotional gimmick, and Korra by her self-centered arrogance that makes her victories feel unearned. The focus has entirely shifted from what active decisive thing will this hero do to what therapy session does this hero need to complete their emotional arc. Do you see how different that is from the heroes who chased destiny and defeated real tangible evil? It's almost sad how things have turned out, but if you look at why heroes of today have been neutered, it becomes even sadder. Modern heroes feel different today because the stories around them no longer let them carry the kind of weight older heroes once held. They are written with softer edges, quieter wants, and less room to take bold action. Instead of standing up and driving the story, many modern heroes spend most of their time reacting, doubting, apologizing, and waiting for the world to push them forward. Onward was a great movie, but that guy Ian doubted himself so much that he started to annoy everyone. And dude didn't even have a real threat to deal with for the majority of the movie. Well, at least he's not that bad compared to characters like Ralph and Wade. Nevertheless, the wildest thing about all this is that the difference in today's heroes often starts with the way modern movies build conflict. Older heroes usually faced clear danger or a villain who forced them to grow. That pressure gave their choices meaning. When Simba faced Scar, he was facing an utterly evil person who was not afraid of killing his own brother, while Mulan had to face a ruthless, genocidal Shan Yu despite all the obstacles she had to first overcome for being a woman. These challenges made their growth feel real. But today, many films soften the antagonist so much that the hero has nothing strong to push against. Without real pressure, the hero's growth turns into quiet self-help moments instead of big turning points. You can see this clearly in Raya and the Last Dragon. Raya starts as a skilled fighter with a strong motivation, but the weight of her challenge disappears when the story refuses to let Namari be a true threat. Listen, whether you agree or not, the truth is, a hero can only be as strong as the struggle they face. When the struggle melts into kindness or confusion, the hero's arc melts too. Encanto has a similar issue. Mirabelle is a warm, relatable character, but the story gives her no villain to oppose. Her main challenge becomes the family's emotional tension, and while that is touching, it keeps her arc soft. She learns, but she never faces danger that demands bravery in the classic sense. Another problem with modern heroes is that they are written with flaws that don't push them forward. Some stories focus so much on emotional softness that the hero stops feeling like a leader. They become someone who needs guidance instead of someone who discovers it. That doesn't make them unlikable, but it makes their arc weak. The strange thing is that these heroes could shine with just a little more pressure. A hero doesn't need to be perfect or fearless, they just need to feel real. You need to be able to look at them and say, yes, I want to be like that guy. Unfortunately, studios are too scared to create real heroes, mostly because they don't want to offend anyone, and they want to appeal to a wider audience. It's crazy, but thankfully, there are still some studios that are not afraid to make heroes the right way. Heroes today can still feel strong when the story lets them keep their spark, and that is what makes characters like Wolf, Naja, Miles Morales, and Puss in Boots stand out. They might live in different worlds, but they all share something rare in modern animation. They learn without losing their bite, and they change without turning into soft, shapeless versions of themselves. These are heroes who still make sense, and when you look at their stories closely, you can see why audiences love them. Take Wolf from The Bad Guys. He stands out because he never loses the spark that makes a hero fun to watch. From the first scene, he moves with confidence, charm, and a clear sense of control. He knows he is good at being bad, and he enjoys every second of it.
Mints. Sorry, folks, I'm switching into decaf.
All right.
That energy pulls you in right away. You want to follow him, even when he's running from the police with a smile on his face. He carries the movie because he leads with intent. But what makes Wolf special is what happens when he's pushed into a moment he can't joke his way out of. For the first time, someone calls him good, and that tiny moment knocks him off balance. He could ignore it, he could laugh it off, but he doesn't. He gets curious and honest, and he starts to wonder what it would feel like to live up to that one little word. You can feel the shift in him, but it never turns him soft. His cleverness stays, so does his swagger and instincts. He still moves with speed and confidence, but he just adds conscience to it. Basically, Wolf is proof that you can build a modern hero without stripping away what makes them cool. He makes mistakes, he doubts himself, and he slips back into old habits, yet he always moves with purpose. He doesn't spend the whole movie trapped in feelings or waiting for someone else to tell him what to do every damn time. That is why he works so well. However, Ne-Zha from, well, Ne-Zha works in a different way. He is one of the clearest examples of a modern hero who refuses to fit into a neat box. His story starts with fear and rejection. Before he's even born, he is cursed. When he finally arrives, it's as a strange ball of flesh that bursts open into a child with wild, dangerous power. Everyone looks at him like a monster. They whisper, judge, and stay away from him. You can almost feel how heavy that must be on a kid who just wants to run around and play like everyone else. And worse, he grows up hearing that he is destined to destroy the world. Imagine carrying that on your shoulders. Wouldn't you act out too? And Ne-Zha does act out. He fights bullies, disobeys his parents, and lashes out when people insult him. He wants to be seen, but the world only sees the worst in him. What people don't know, however, is that he uses all that anger to hide something fragile. He wants to be loved, especially by society. And the crazy part is that his parents see and accept him for who he is, but he was too headstrong to realize that. Fortunately, he eventually got to see the extent they were willing to go to protect him. So when the moment finally came for him to choose between saving himself and protecting his village, he did the brave thing.
Too slow! Fine, and I'll ice you out!
He stands up to his only friend to keep his family and his town safe. And he fights a battle that literally tears him apart. That choice shows us who he really is. He may look like a demon, but his heart is bigger than any prophecy. That is why people love him, because he's not afraid of fighting for his place in the world with everything he has, even when the world doesn't fight back for him. Miles Morales brings a gentler kind of strength, but it is just as powerful. When we meet him, he is unsure of who he is. He wants to do well in school, but he feels out of place. He wants to make his parents proud, but he feels trapped by their expectations. He wants to enjoy life, but he's scared of being himself. And then, the spider bite changes everything. Suddenly, he has powers he does not understand, and instead of giving him confidence, it throws him into chaos. He can't control his sticking, he can't swing properly, and he most certainly can't fight. Even when the other spider people try to teach him, he feels like he is always one step behind. But here is the secret to Miles. His journey is about becoming the best version of himself. He learns at his own pace and finds his own rhythm. His leap of faith moment is so powerful because it is the first time he trusts that he has everything he needs inside him. He stops trying to copy the other spider people, he stops waiting for permission, and he rises because he chooses to rise. And the more he trusts himself, the more he grows. In the sequel, when Miguel tries to force him into a destiny he didn't choose, Miles stands up straight and says no. That moment shows how far he has come. He becomes brave without losing his kindness. He becomes confident without losing his heart. And that balance is what makes him one of the strongest modern heroes we have. Another incredible hero of recent times is Puss in Boots in The Last Wish. Puss is the kind of hero who surprises you. Before this movie, he was always fearless, loud, and ready to boast. But this time, the story takes him somewhere new. Death starts chasing him, and for the first time in his long life, Puss feels fear. Real fear. The kind that makes his fur stand on end. Watching him go through that is strange at first because we're so used to him laughing in the face of everything. But the movie uses that fear to open him up. He starts thinking about the lives he wasted. He starts wondering what he actually wants, and he starts caring in a deeper way. What makes his arc beautiful is that he stays bold, sharp, and dramatic. He keeps his charm and his flair. But now, those things mean something more. His bravery is no longer about proving he is a legend, but protecting the people he loves. You can feel that shift in his voice and in the choices he makes. He learns the value of life without losing the fire that made him a hero in the first place. All these heroes still make sense because the story respects who they are. Their growth matches their personality. Their mistakes shape their future. Their emotions push them forward instead of shutting them down. They don't lose their identity while changing, and that is what makes them feel strong in a time where many heroes are written to be soft. Remember we said just now that some heroes have become soft because the villains went soft too? Well, to avoid those kind of villains, we have created a video of how to build the perfect villain. You know, the kind anyone would love. Go check out that video now.